Hi, good afternoon. Welcome to another edition of Nightshade Productions Action. I'm your host, Nicholas Checker, and today the action is going to take place in the sweet science of boxing, in which we're going to explore the basic avenues of this particular sport, and we're going to look at the intricacies of it that make it into a sweet science. In order to do this, we had to tap into some experts. So some of the experts we have are from the Whaling City Boxing Gym on Bank Street out of New London. And first we have, to my right, Kent Ward, who is the owner, director, head coach, longtime boxer in his own right for many years. And Kent will be discussing the sport. He'll be discussing the various tactics. He'll be discussing and showing us a lot of the science that does go into this sport, and which perhaps will change a little bit of your perspectives on boxing. And to my left, we have Rollie Pier. Rollie is a retired boxer, had 108 fights in his time. He also is one of the more prominent coaches over at Whaling City Boxing. He's developed a lot of fighters, and between he and Kent, there are some Golden Glove champions and a couple that are turning professional. Some already have, and we have with us today who will be giving a little demonstration, Roberto Vega, young professional to be very soon. He's a Golden Gloves champion. You'll see some of his stuff a little later in the program. So first off, what we're going to talk about here is why is it called the sweet science of boxing? Because the roots of boxing go very, very far back. Actually, there are actual etchings, paintings that were on walls of the Minoan civilization where there was an actual form of gloves that people used to wear. And in Sardinia, we had the same thing. So boxing can go back to, say, 1500 BC. I say the fistic arts in hand-to-hand combat goes back to when we first crawled up out of the primordial ooze. And we've been doing that ever since. But boxing as we know it now has evolved substantially. There was a time when it was considered just a brawling activity. And there are two names that people most likely are going to recognize, even those who are not ardent boxing fans. One of them is John L. Sullivan, also known as the Boston Strong Boy, and he came near the end of the famous bare knuckle careers. That era, basically they didn't wear gloves, and they brawled. They basically just stood there and pounded each other. John L. Sullivan held the title for 10 years. Near the end of the 19th century, actually 1892, he met a man named Gentleman Jim Corbett, another name people have understood. And so let's find out what happened, because Corbett did dethrone John L. Sullivan in that particular match. And how did he defeat a champion who held the title for a decade? Well, he brought a new brand of boxing. He brought a new brand of fighting into the public eye. And I'm going to ask Rollie here to explain some of that. So Rollie, what we had here, we had a boxer that could basically, what did he go into bars, thump the bar and say, I can lick any man in the world? And he could. Yet he ran into this person who was a scholar, literally a gentleman, very refined, but brought something new to the sport. How did he pioneer the sport? How did Gentleman Jim bring out a whole different element of the sport?
Well, he was a proponent of the left jab. And from there, other fighters followed his procedure. But
the left jab, Rollie, could you explain that a little bit to us? How is that different from these guys that would just stand there and throw haymakers?
I got a couple tapes from way back prior to the, we were discussing before, the mouthpieces. Mm-hmm. And they didn't use them then. But
mouthpiece, could you let our public know what a mouthpiece is?
You put it in your mouth, and it's supposed to be a shock absorber for when you get hit in the head and brain, prevents your brain from shaking, from what I understand. I don't know. But I got a tape home, as I explained to you guys before, of Gentleman Jim in a situation like this, no ring or anything, sparred with this guy. I think it was Glenn Courtney. His last name was Courtney, and he couldn't fight at all. And Jim just used his jab, and they had little gloves, almost.
Can you show us a jab right now?
Stand up.
Sure, for a minute. Just give us an idea. Because show us what people used to do first, Rollie. Show us how they used to throw.
This guy was real bad. He threw punches like this, which is forget about it.
Okay.
You're going to be a straight short punch beats that. The jab is from between your face and your shoulder, and you step, bam, and you turn your hand, bam, bam.
So straight out, basically.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
Corbett was the innovator of that.
Okay. What else did Corbett use? So
Well,
that
he-
must have been a big shock to John L. Sullivan as this person's
there's no
jabbing away
tapes
at
of
him.
that fight.
Right.
There's tapes of Corbett and Fitzsimmons, and Corbett and this guy I just explained, Courtney, and but John L. Sullivan was a wild man. I don't know how if he would have today's fighters. Ali would have had a cakewalk, but it's a slow evolution.
Okay, so they probably threw these roundhouse haymakers and everything. What about straight rights? I mean, how did that come into being? The straight right and the left hook.
Yeah. Now, way back in there used to be a guy named Mendoza.
Okay.
I forgot his first name. Mendoza. And he fought similar to Floyd Patterson style with the hands up and combination punches.
Hands up like here.
Yeah,
like
you know.
peekaboo style, they called it?
Peekaboo,
Yeah.
yeah. That's the original guy.
Okay.
Mendoza. And then Cus D'Amato, well, I don't know if you want me to go this far.
Go ahead.
Cus D'Amato improvised it with Floyd Patterson.
Customato, a lot of people know he was also the trainer
Yeah,
of Mike Tyson.
Floyd Patterson, Jose Torres, Mike Tyson, and they all held their hands up here, and it was a speed. It was all speed.
Okay.
Ducking under and speed.
So going back to Corbett and Sullivan, where Sullivan, I guess there wasn't much of a science there at the time. What did Corbett do to land so many punches? Can you explain the advantage of having a jab, a straight right, a hook against a guy who's never seen any of that
Yeah,
before?
in and out, side to side, straight punches.
Okay.
I didn't even know if he had a hook. But he was the first guy to start scientific, I think. Mendoza, but nobody's
Okay,
got
so-
tapes, and that's way back.
A little more scientific. Why are we calling it scientific fighting?
Scientific
as
because
opposed
you
to
got to
brawling?
use common sense to avoid your opponent's attack, and that's what we teach. It's just not a slugfest.
How do you avoid your opponent's attack?
There's all kinds of different defensive tactics.
All right,
Catching the jab, so forth.
All right, could you stand up again, Rollie, and just
Yeah.
show us? First, can you show us from where you are the jabs, the right, the hooks,
Yeah,
the
jab.
uppercuts,
Yeah,
the
as I
Corbett
said,
type
The
punches?
jab, you're stepping. The right hand, your hip and you get your right hand out straight and your chin is down.
So you're using your whole body to throw that punch in
Yeah,
a
see,
sense.
bam.
Okay.
Right here. And then the hook, you turn your body again. That's
Can you
the
show
way-
us your hook?
Yeah, right here. Bam.
Can you show that again, but slow it down a little because you throw them so fast I can't see it.
She comes
There we
around.
go. Now show us a couple fast ones. Okay, like I said, 108 fights. 108 fights.
No, well,
That's a
that
lot of
counts
hooks you throw.
semi-pro and everything.
Okay.
I didn't have 108 pro fights. I had amateur, semi-pro. He had a lot of semi-pro fights.
Okay.
And
Can you show us too, Rollie, how do people avoid punches? The blocking, the
catch
slipping?
the jab right here, and you sometimes move your head. You can slip the jab either way, which is not easy to do.
Slipping is just getting your head out of the
see,
way?
Slipping over here, slipping over here. You have your hands up, slipping. Right hand, you can go under, or you block it, counter.
So this would be quite a shock to a guy who just stands there and exchanges punches
Yeah.
with somebody, and then a guy like Corbett comes out and has
Yeah,
all this.
and
whole
if
different
you
arsenal.
Saw Corbett on tape, you wouldn't think he could compete today with a guy like Ali, or these Floyd Patterson and Tyson.
Okay, now, before you sit, Rollie, I'd like you to show a good flurry of punches.
Yeah.
Show,
If I go
give us your best shot. Show us what you
well,
got.
if a guy throws a right, I'm short. I have to go under the punches. If he throws a hook, I can go under this way and come back, catch a jab, counter, throw the jab, hook, catch a jab, 1, 2, 3, counter punch it. And a short guy has to get in close. I have
Okay,
to
and
get
why
in
is that? Tell us about
close.
that.
Huh?
Why is that?
Because if I jab and he jabbed, He's bigger than me. His jab's gonna reach me, and mine won't hit the target.
So the short of me has advantage is to
Yeah,
take the guy's reach
but
away.
guys like Willie Pep didn't bob and weave. He just moved side to side, and he was shorter than me, but he was a featherweight, yeah. And he just jabbed and did things that, and Nicolino Loci.
Okay, featherweight in the 124-pound
Yeah.
category, 126,
Yeah.
something like that. Okay.
And Nicolino Loci too. Nobody knows about him, but we know.
Talk briefly about Nicolino Loce,
Well,
because I've
Nicolino
heard you talk
Loci
about him before.
Was an Italian guy from, I think South America, and he was so fast and his movement was so good. He hardly blocked punches. He turned, you know.
Ah, okay.
And he had the ability to go under, bounce off the ropes, and he was short too. But he was I forgot, junior featherweight.
Featherweight.
I think a
Yeah.
featherweight.
Okay.
And we got him on tape, and we marveled when we saw him. I know he and Willie Pep just is unbelievable.
Okay, Rollie, thank you so much for
Right.
all that.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Rollie also was a school teacher in the public school system for many years, taught 5th grade. His students absolutely adored him.
Never hit anybody.
No, of course not. But he did teach them how to box as well.
Some.
And I know some of them that actually learned boxing from him. I heard about Rollie long before I met him, and very much beloved by his students. And to this day, they rave about him. I've met some of his students who are now middle-aged, and they still think the world of him.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we're going to shift over here to Kent Ward. Again, the owner, operator, director, head coach of the Whaling City Boxing. Kent, could you talk a little bit to us about tactics in boxing? Again, a lot of people say it's like a game of chess. So how can chess, and I've played tournament chess and everything in the old days many times, and you're always thinking about your opponent. What are they going to do? What am I going to have to do? Explain how that happens in the ring.
Well, Rollie and I play checkers. We don't play chess, right?
Okay.
We play checkers, so.
It's a great name,
But
you know?
seriously, some of the things that he had said earlier, how the sport has evolved over time, and he hit one key word was counterpunching. A lot of guys weren't counterpunching years ago. No. They played a lot of my turn, your turn. The guy would come in, bang, stop. The other guy bang back, and that was kind of the way they fought.
Okay.
So the guy that moved, and he was different than the other. When that started happening, guys would start moving. They started teaching guys how to fight from angles rather than in front of somebody. And then you had guys returning fire or returning a punch when somebody threw back at them. So if somebody threw a punch at him, the guy would return fire right away. So he became a counterpuncher, punching off this guy's offense. And the real talented guys were generating offense on their own. And then when a guy would be starting to punch back, then they'd also return fire, so they'd counterpunch right off of that. So in a sense, that guy was continuously doing something. And that's the sport's evolved into that now, where there's a lot more movement. It's the theory of taking two to give one. That's not as prevalent now. That used to be a statement years ago. Yeah. You know, he'll take 2 or 3 punches to give one, like a badge of courage. Mm-hmm. You know, wow, that's pretty good. He can really take a punch, but the sport has kind of moved away from that now. Even though, I mean, in some cases you obviously see that happening, but there's that science part of it now, where the footwork, the movement, the angles, you know, getting in, doing what you have to do, getting out and around your opponent. So it's kind of moved into that direction now. Concentration on hand speed, and you know, and a lot of that came with the changing of strength conditioning. You know, a lot of guys have personal trainers now that push them through programs. They have foot speed that they didn't have before. They've increased hand speed, the exercise, strengthening the core. So that the sport has changed, and you know, and physiologically, the guys are developing more now.
So the sport, to be a part of, to actually understand the sweet science, you have to have an enormous boxing aptitude, so to speak. Intellectual sense.
Yeah, you have to have a good sense for the sport, you know, and be able to be perceptive, pick up the guy's movement, watch the guy's body language, be able to you know, be proactive but also reactive and work off of it. But like I said, it's in all sports across the board. You know, the exercise science across the board has done great wonders for these sports.
Could we have you and Roberto show us a little of this now?
We can.
Roberto Vega, the Golden Gloves champion, soon to be turning professional.
Excuse me.
And so Roberto and Kent are going to give a little demonstration of some of the sweet science that Rollie and Kent have been talking about, and showing you some of the skills and aptitude of a Jim Corbett combined maybe with the strength and raw courage of a John L. Sullivan. The best of all worlds here. So you guys want to show us, and then Kent, you can explain what's going on to us.
Yeah, turn over here this way, yeah. So Roberto, if you can just see, just as he's starting out here a little bit with his, I might also add that this young man is an extremely talented dancer with, what is it, b-boying? Is that what they call it? The b-boying dance. But he's competed in a lot of contests. He's done really well. And you can see a lot of that in his style. A very good, gifted, natural athlete. But his footwork is, you can see how he's moving around, and as I move, he moves. He sees I'm coming in this direction, or if I'm over here, he's moving and keeping that angle with me, so that as I start to turn towards him, he's picking up these angles. And his jab, the jab, this is what Rollie's been talking about here. And jab, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Add the hook now, the left hook. Rollie's talking about the right hook for you. There you go. And the hook, good. Slipping punches like Rollie was saying before. As he slips, boom, and he'll come with an uppercut now. As he slips that punch. Yep. Up here, back with a straight left. Again. One more. Good. Now he'll slip in this direction here. He'll slip over here. Now he's slipping over here. As he slips these punches, he's not slipping. An inside slip, as Rollie will tell you, is a very dangerous slip. But there's a lot of guys still can use that. An inside slip would be, he's going to slip this punch this way, which puts him into the path of this punch here. But it's a good slip if you can pull it off and you can beat this punch. But he's going to slip now outside of my hands here. So over here, he's in a position right now where he's away from both of my hands. And that's what he's trying to do. That's where I'm talking about being able to stay outside of harm's way now. And he'll return fire right over that with that. So he slips, slip, slip, back with a hook. Again, one more. All right, jab, double jab, double jab. Yep. Now he moves. Now counter punching that Rollie mentioned earlier, and we're talking about a little bit.
Counter punching where your opponent throws a punch.
Counter punching where your opponent
retaliate.
is throwing it and you come back. And one of the drills we do a lot on counter punching is when he'll work in here and he counters right away. So that's a counter punch. It touches, and he's back. And what happens with that is, in that counter punch, is I'm in here. If we were boxing right now, and I came inside, and he threw a jab at me, and I came over here, as he brings that hand back now to cover, I come in here, and that counter punch is right there. Because I don't have ability to defend that punch. So now that's counter punching with the same hand. Now he can roll with the punch and counter punch with this hand. A little different counter punch. So it's mixing the counter punches up, see? Yep, again. Bang. Go with the same one now. Bang. Now roll with it. See? So it's just mixing the combinations up. So you're counter punching one time with one way, one on the other. So you're staying unpredictable.
The power for those punches is coming from the hips and the legs as well?
All in the
We're
core.
not just doing arms,
Nope,
it's the whole body.
It's coming from activating the hips, the lower body activating, so you're actually getting all your core power in, and you're delivering it now with the arms and shoulders. But it's all coming there with the most powerful area.
So Roberto weighs how much?
132.
So when he throws a punch, it's like 132 pounds impacted on his fist, not just strength, but it's leverage.
Yeah.
And so it's not just all about strength; it's about what you do with it.
That's it. Yep. Yep.
Okay. Terrific demonstration. Kent, why don't you come back over, and Roberto, why don't you pull up a chair here, because we're going to be finishing up in a few minutes, because there's a couple of other questions I have to ask. And again, what I'm hoping first off is, from listening to Rollie and listening to you and seeing you and Roberto out there, the audience is getting an idea that there is a very intensive science that goes into this. The training, because Roberto's making this all look very easy, and I know for a fact it's not. It's very, very difficult. Just to understand, what does it take just to develop your basic jab? Either of you can jump in on this. Your basic jab, your right, and especially that left hook is the precision with which he's doing it is it's artistic actually.
Well, I mean, and he'll tell you, repetition. Repetition, right, Roll? I mean, it's over and over and over again to the point where some people are just like, well, I don't want to continue doing this. But that's really what it takes. And, and it's also, how athletic are you? What is your aptitude for boxing? Do you have that natural athletic ability, which, we've had a lot of guys that have, and Rollie remarked on it earlier, some of the guys that have wrestled in high school for 4 years or wrestled a little bit in college have come in and started to box, and you see a different aptitude in some of these guys, not just the work ethic, but, their ability, because they've already worked a lot of footwork with their wrestling moves. And so that guy may move along a little quicker, but it takes time to put you can become a tremendous gym boxer where you're looking great on the bags, you look good on the speed bag, you're jumping rope, you're hitting the double end bag, you're doing all the different combinations, you're putting all the work in. You get in the ring, and facing somebody in the ring is a whole different story. So
yeah, I'd like to have both of you comment on that actually. So now you're in the ring, and now you're not just sparring, and now it's not controlled, and now somebody's coming at you, and they're throwing punches that are going to hurt or could hurt if they land. What's from both of you, and Roberto, if you want to jump in on this, for that first time when that happens, that first time you get in the ring, what is that sensation like, and how do you deal with it?
Yeah, the first time is very frightening. I don't care who the guy is. You just got to try to stay calm, which is very difficult, and try to put in play whatever you learned. But the first time is just an unusual experience. After that, you start to get a little, confidence. And like he said, and they were doing, if you learn all these combinations and know how to counterpunch and move around, and there's different styles. So depending upon your ability and your size. And the average boxing fan doesn't know comparatively nothing compared to what it really is. Unless you've been part of it, you don't know. You'll see guys boo. I got tapes home. They booed Joe Louis, everybody, Ali, and they don't know what it takes to go through this procedure these guys just showed you.
Here's another question as we'll be wrapping up pretty soon, but what drew you to this sport? I from having coached gymnastics many years, I know what drew a person into that. What makes a person want to play baseball or football? What draws a person into boxing, and what keeps them in it?
There's a lot of different reasons for it. A lot of guys it's something they grew up around. We grew up around the sport. It was when the first TVs were out.
Yeah.
And Friday night, Gillette Cavalcade of Sports was on Friday night, and everybody in the neighborhood, whoever had the TV, you were in that living room watching fights. So your fathers and grandfathers and uncles and the kids were all in the room, and so that was what I went through with the sport. Growing up right around it, and it's the same thing today. Where some of the kids come in the gym, and they just walk up. They might be 13, 14 years old, and say, "I just want to box."
And you have a program.
Roberto, what drew you to it?
My dad. He's always been a big fan of it. I've always grew up watching it, and that's what got me into it.
Were you part of the Heavy Hitters program, Roberto, or when did you first get into the gym and get moving into it? Because I know they have a program for young people at Whaling City Boxing called Heavy Hitters. So give us a little of your background, Roberto, and then Kent would explain that.
No, he well, he can go ahead and talk, but he started out at Taino?
Yeah,
Taino Boxing, which was, we had our old gym years ago in Waterford, and we helped Taino get started. And then they had a gym, and they had a couple of good trainers, and a lot of good guys come out of that club. He boxed there. And
Taino was the name of the gym?
Was the name of the boxing program, yeah, Taino Boxing, yeah. And one of the guys has since, the head of the program passed away. And it kind of put the program off kilter a little bit. And then the other trainer, Ruben Alvarez, he moved to Florida. He since has a nice boxing gym and a nice boxing program in Florida. But then these guys would come back and forth between our gym that we had for sparring and working out, and then they kind of all ended up back with us. And he kind of went through that whole system.
Okay, and in closing up, what I want to say is, one of, I think, exceptional things about Whaling City Boxing is people probably figure, okay, we're going to have nothing in here but people like Roberto, young competitive boxers who want to turn professional or compete amateur, and then you hit a certain age, you're not there. But Whaling City Boxing, I've seen them very young. I've seen them a good deal older, and I'm proud to say I'm a participant. So it seems that anybody that wants to come through that door and put on gloves and learn the craft of boxing, learn something about the sweet science, you'll welcome that. And if you guys could just comment on that a little bit, because I think it makes it unique. This is just not a normal thing to go into a boxing gym and see generations of people loving it.
To me, from what I've seen, the guys that have remained in the gym are the ones that are successful, guys like Roberto. And but it's a transient type sport. Guys come in, they see a movie or something, boxing, $1 Million Baby, so forth, and they come up in the gym, and it's a lot of hard work. And if they can last through the hard work, and they got some talent, which he has and a few other guys, they'll do well. Mm-hmm. And Kent's very experienced, and I got experience, and the other helpers we got are all good. And you have women in the sport too. You've got competitive fighters, and you've got teenage girls. You've got a mother and daughter team that come in there and work out. You just finish up, Kent. Just what is it about this wider, more broad appeal to this particular sport that people would not naturally expect? Yet there it is, evidence over there at Whaling City Boxing.
Well, I some of it I think is moved on through the aerobics part of boxing. There's been a lot of programs that we had in our old gym. We had one that was a boxing aerobics program that Lori Ferrulo, who did. She ran a great program and had a lot of people involved in it, and so that really kind of carried boxing outside the ring. That we can use this for fitness, and that started bringing people in the gym to do something a little bit different than running on a treadmill or running. So now you're learning. You're actually learning how to box, and you're hitting the bags and jumping rope and training like a fighter. Well, and there's a lot of people in the gym that don't fight and will not fight. It's not mandatory to fight. You know, you come in and enjoy being in the gym, and that's I think that was a big part of it. And then athletes got into it because of cross training. There's a lot of baseball players that got into boxing off season. They're not competitively boxing, but they're training. They do light sparring because hand-eye coordination they're able to pick the ball up better when the pitcher presents the ball up in that window, because the punch is traveling from such a short distance that when they can slip a punch that's coming from a short distance, they're focused on that ball leaving that particular window. They found out was enhanced. We had the linemen from UConn down training. The coach sent them down to train to get their hands better. The offensive linemen working their hands a little bit better, keeping their balance and moving and using their hands a little bit more effectively. So that's what has brought more people into the boxing gym, besides those that want to compete.
Okay.
Can I just add one thing?
Yep.
Real quick. We have a girl in our gym that stuck it out all the way, Kelsey Kaiser, and Kent, and I taught her, and Kent's really done a lot with her, and she's got potential. And I just thought I'd bring her name up. Because
Kelsey Kaiser is terrific, and I would say she exemplifies everything that's good about this sport. So in closing, I'd just like to say I hope we've shed a little bit more light on why it's called the sweet science. So the next time you hear boxing, don't think brawling, think craft. Thank you.